touched on it last time, but there's a little bit more to it. And so what we'll do is, I'd been out with all the groups and stuff like that. As you guys know, we've spent about 12, 13 years on the road with all the guys, and about 4 of those was spent in England. I lived at the Marble Arch Hotel on and off, and we had a rehearsal hall there, and it was a fun life. I love your country, but I got kind of tired of being on the road and all that, and the music scene changed in 1980. I said, see you later. But I had gotten a call right before that from Paul Klipsch, and we might have touched on this a little bit, but Paul Klipsch was very important to my life because he pretty much changed my life. And what I mean by that is he called me and he said, "Are you the guy that's got the kilowatt sound systems?" And yeah, actually, the one that we use with the Who and all, it's 8 kilowatt Macintosh amps and some Crown amps and then amps of our own. He was a gracious man to me, and yet he was a cantankerous old guy if things weren't right. But he wanted to come and see the system, and so he flew up to my place in Illinois, and we spent all day long, and he was asking me all kinds of questions, and mainly, how did you learn to do that? Well, I didn't go to college. I barely made it out of high school because I was already playing at the Fox Theater. I had a great career going from sophomore on. So I didn't go to school very much, just enough to graduate. I finally did graduate, but that wasn't my plan. Once I found the theater organ, it became a disease to me. So anyway, we really kicked it off, and I told him I learned all this from ham radio, and I answered that question over 100 times in my years on the road because everybody would come to me, that engineers and electricians in these big arenas, and I would tell them it's ham radio. No, we mean, like, where did you learn it? Ham radio. Well, man, you don't understand. I said, no, you don't understand. And so amateur radio really was my college professor. And people like Paul Klipsch, Ray Dolby, some of these greats came into my life and helped me a lot too. But Paul was probably the most interesting in that he flew me back down to his place in Hope, Arkansas. And the next couple of days, it was incredible. He was teaching me things, telling me to do this, do that. In his lab, it was an old telephone exchange building in Hope. And there's a picture of him with his K-horn that he had built in plexiglass. What was so unique about this, if you have never experienced one, notice I didn't say hear, I said experience. That thing was designed by Paul to fit in the corner of a room. And so the left 8-foot was the last of the 16-foot horn. 8 that way and 8 this way out of the corner. And if you can imagine that, and that the K-horn that you see in the picture was bolted to the wall. So these two 16-foot, or the two 8-foots, that was the 16-foot last of that particular cabinet, which resonated then at 30 hertz, really, really something. People hear 30 hertz today, they're only hearing harmonics. That thing really makes it happen. But he was telling me that one of the most important things he thought I should know about was the studies of the Bell Labs. This was an amazing story. The early telephone systems did not work. They were mushy, they were clear, they had no speech articulation, they were just flat and linear, okay, like audio should be, right? So they put the telephone system together in New Jersey, 2 wires, all across America. Every 500 miles was a relay station to keep all the level up frequency of all. That was fine, okay. But when they got to the other end in California, this is what they heard. It was far from being articulate. It was mushy. It was bassy. It wasn't there. So what are you going to do? What happened was they had a big dilemma, because this was the major deal with Bell Labs, was the telephone system. So they put 4,000 of their scientists. Yes, there were 4,000 of them. They put 4,000 of the scientists on this project to find out what had happened. Why did it not sound good? Because everything went in and everything came out all across America and the relay stations. The two lead guys happened to be Dr. Harvey Fletcher and Dr. Weldon Munson. I would really hope that most of you know about the Fletcher-Munson curve. They started working, the whole team, and they discovered something. What they discovered was the human ear. It wasn't anything they were doing. They did everything right. But look at the human ear. The louder that we have to listen to, look at that 100, 110 dB, it's almost flat. Look down here where you're listening today at 20 or 30. You might not know it, but everything that has anything to do with audio today, your telephone, iPhone, your CD player, your DVD player, your television, everything audio. The designers and the engineers took this into compass, like, uh-oh. And so what did they do? Well, these guys figured out this one. We had to have all of the audio with speech, human speech, had to have a rise at 2.5K, because that is the sweet spot for the human voice. It makes no difference if it's a lady, a woman, a child. We all have this rich 2.5 problem. And so instead of listening to everything like this, our brain is looking for that. And so, as I did a second ago, I'm only turning down one of the parametric EQ controls. I'm taking out 2.5K. And as I rotate it down, there's 1,500. Here comes 1,000. There's 800. There's 400. Now, what happened? The articulation is gone. The F and the S, the P and the B, there is no essence of sound. That sweet sound we're looking for, it's not there. Why? Well, that's because your ears and your brain is just really trying to hear that. Now, the essence of sound, the F and the S sound differently. We simply have stunning sound because it's not flat. And I get guys every once in a while that want to argue about, I got to have flat. Well, okay. Then I'll tell you what you do. You go argue with those guys, okay? And especially those two guys that already figured it out. And so everything has to be equalized. But wait a minute. They discovered the problem, but they had no way to correct it. There was no equalization. The word hadn't been talked about. So what did they do? 4,000 of them, they figured it out. Of course, a high-pass filter. High-pass, low-pass filters are pretty simple in their rare form. The right size of capacitor will pass all of the frequencies, highs, lows, whatever, if it's the right value. But if you want to get rid of some bass, you take the right value to ground through a resistor. It's that simple. There's the equation for it. The low-pass filter's opposite. You put the audio in full range through the resistor, depending on how big it is, it'll pass all of it. And the cap to ground takes away the highs you wanted, depending on the sizes of all of those. So they fixed the telephone system by installing high pass filters along the line, and they finally got it to look like that. And everybody was happy. You also notice that that is 300 to 3,000 cycles wide. Think about that. 300 to 3,000. Isn't that something like you talk into every day? Huh? Yes. Well, if we want to pay attention, we have to listen to those 4,000 scientists, and we need that equalization for us to understand the essence of sound. But we didn't have it. It was not there. It was void for many years. In 1929, a young man, look how young he was, John Volkmann. What a genius kid this was. He was working at RCA, and his first job was to equalize a motion picture playback system, because in 1930-31, here come these things they called talkies. Motion picture theaters for the past decade or more was simply silent. That's why we had theater organs. It wasn't patented as a theater organ. One of your great countrymen, Hope Jones, designed this in 1910, and it had all of the instruments that you would need to play behind a movie. Now, we're talking about orchestral things. It had clarinets, it's got trumpets, it's got cymbals, drums, piano, all of the instruments of an orchestra. It was patented by Hope Jones in London as a unit orchestra. It was not an organ. And he sold that patent to Wurlitzer, and they became the manufacturer of theater organs, and still is the big dog. And so motion picture theaters were finally able to get something going with their audio system because of John Volkmann. Here's how he did it. He had to go into these theaters one by one that had RCA systems in them. And he built this little gadget, and he had several low pass, several high pass filters. And he had a little switch box where he could switch them in line from the program source to the audio input. And so he could figure out from this what the values were without just taking a bunch of resistors, capacitors, and solder them in once he figured it out. But here's the surprising part of this. From 1920 to 1967, the world was void of serious equalization. The word wasn't talked about. What do you mean? It wasn't. So a little rise in the 1950-52 when hi-fi came in, and Paul Klipsch was one of the major factors of that, because he built these great speakers that were full range, something other speakers wouldn't do at the time. Well, in 1950, and I know I had one, I bought one of the first hi-fi systems, and it had a bass and a treble, but it wasn't real active. It was not very active. I didn't know this. It just, hey, you were happy just to be able to do a little bit of equalization, but you really didn't have to do much. The equipment was all pretty flat and linear. The only thing you wanted to do is, if it was any kind of speech stuff, is try to increase that 2.5 a little bit. Well, I had heard in 1967, I had heard that Langevin had come out with an equalizer. Langevin was a company in California that built mixers and processors for motion picture theaters, sound reproduction people, and recording studios. So I go charging to California. It's like, whoa. When I saw this, I went nuts. It's like, what are you talking about? Look at this. You could change the frequency up in the top, and then you could either increase or decrease, boost or cut. It was pretty cool. And I was ready to make my purchase. I wanted to buy some of these, and they said, well, let me take you around the corner. Look what's coming. Longevin and Altec got together. Now think about this. Put yourself in this time. This is 1967. We really didn't have much equalization talked about, right? I walk around the corner, and what did I see? That was the mixer that they had. We didn't have mixers either. See, that's the other situation. The only mixers we had that date was one of these. It was a broadcast mixer. So what are you going to do? I said, yeah, I want a couple of those. But he said, well, come around the corner. Whoa, you can imagine how I felt. The excitement to see a graphic. It was the first graphic equalizer. It's like, whoa. Knobs are one thing if you have to vary it, in a regular mixer type thing. But this, you could draw a graph of it, and you'll notice where the high spot is. Anybody want to pay attention? Between 2 and 3K. Hello, thank you very much. And I bought 2 of them. I brought them back to our plant in Illinois. I bought 2 of the mixers and the equalizer. You can see it up there where that little bright light is. And I brought one of their compressor limiters also. I had a carpenter build this really cool case for it. That thing traveled around the world for I don't know how many years. But when we roll into a theater or an arena and roll out that mixer in 1970, people went freako because they had never seen anything like that. Up until that time, this is what we had. My first show was with Jimi Hendrix with that mixer. It's like, what? And I was right up stage front. I could have touched his feet while he was playing. We didn't have snakes and, multi-chords. It all came later that we came up with. But so many of the people that day, oh man. But amazing, we went on through life, and once we got all the stuff with the equalization and 16 channels and so on, it went crazy. But it was all about the fact that Paul Klipsch turned me on to these scientists, and I was learning so many things. And then when I found out about the fact that we needed equalization, and all of a sudden we were at the helm of it, oh, buddy. What came around the corner from that, after that, was the parametric equalizer. Symmetrics came up with the most popular one. Practically every radio station in the world today has some type of equalization. Of course, today a lot of it's digital, with the computers, but us old analog cats, this is what it is. You'll see the picture in the top has a mic preamp, the first one on the left, then it has a compressor and a limiter, has a de-esser. So if you have a host that has, some of us do have S's, or it's very predominant as they speak. You can cut that cookie little 12,000 out real easy. Then you have 3 different, on the bottom, you have 3 different filters. And they're very simple. I mean, when you look at those 9 controls, you're saying, oh my gracious, they're simple. Their frequency, I got that one set to 100 hertz. Octave, that's the bandwidth of that. If I set it at 100 hertz, then that filter, I could stretch it out 100 either way. And this way I stretch it 200 either way. and then they cut or boost. The next one, guess where it is? 2.5K, baby. And look at it. I want the wide frequency of that. I want 3 octaves and boost that son of a gun about +6 or so. And the last one is set at about 5K. And that wouldn't be primarily for ham radio, as the last one we heard, but that's another story. Anyway, I'd been off the air for about 12, 13 years. I come back on the air, and I couldn't believe what I was hearing. All these horrible signals. They were distorted, they were bassy, they were mushy, they didn't have it. What happened to my great Art Collins audio? Would somebody want to please tell me? I freaked out because all I heard was a bunch of bass, highly distorted things. I'm going, man, what is going on here? So I started experimenting and playing. I thought it was time for me to steal some ideas from John Volkman. Remember him? And what I did, I had built a little 2-band equalizer. The first filter was at 160 hertz. You could plus or minus that. That was the bass, the low. The other one was at where? 2.5K. You could increase or decrease that. And so instead of these guys being all bassy, mushy, and sounding like this and say, don't I sound great? No, you don't sound great. Well, my buddies tell me I sound really good. Well, I'm sorry, you don't. I can't understand you. And I didn't put the distortion in there. A lot of them had a lot of distortion because they used that stupid compressor. We really had a lot of fun building this, getting on the air with it, because a lot of guys had stopped me on there. Hey, what are you doing? How'd you do it? So I wrote an article and I sent it to the league and they published it. It was the lead article. They loved it because in their research, they said, we've never had any equalization in ham radio before July 1982. It got the cover award and it was the lead article. I was very honored, blessed, and highly humbled because I didn't realize that. I thought surely I'd been off the air for all these times, and equalization to me was in the forefront, but not to the world yet. So we had a lot of fun with all of that. And again, it was all because we needed it. Well, in 1999, Dr. Inouye came to me, who's the CEO, founder of ICOM, Inouye Communications. And he had a picture of my equalizer and my Goldline microphone. I'm going, whoa. He was thinking of new radio line and he wanted to use EQ 200 in that radio. And so everything from the Pro 1 all the way through to the 7300, the 7610, all of these had the equalizer in them. And they were very, very simple to operate, but a lot of people didn't understand it yet. It was new. And I was very saddened. I'd get on the air and hear guys with ICOMs, and they were in the default mode because they didn't know what to do. And so we would go out to a lot of ham fests and do a lot of things on a new website we put together, and it was very simple. What's the first thing you do when you sat down at a radio? What's the very first thing? I know you turn it on. You set the bandwidth. You got to figure out, what are you doing, man? Are we going to rag chew? Okay. Then we're going to set the transmit bandwidth filter, TBW. You see it in the third line there. 100 to 2900. That'll give you nice full range. And then you go up and you notch out some of the bass. That's set at 160 hertz. You can't change that, but you don't need to. Just reduce that a little and punch up that treble, because that treble filter is at 2.5K. How simple was that? And so If you're doing DX work, you set that transmit filter 500. We're going to really knock out a lot of the low end, 500 to 2500, and then you go up and take all the bass out of the equalization you can, minus 5 plus 5 on the treble. Yes, you will have a terrible sounding signal. And you can say, well, why did you do it? Because all of your power is placed at 2.5K. I might have showed you this last time. I like to do this because it really drives at home what we're trying to do. You're a DXer. Well, if the air in this balloon was RF and you had, remember, you had that 2.5 wide open, you'd rolled off all the bass, and then you set the bandwidth and you narrowed that up from 500 to 2500, where's the RF going to go? Of course, 2.5. I mean, you're going to be midi range. Oh my goodness. But that's what you need. When you're in a pile up, you are going to be the guy that came across because the listener's ears and mind is looking for that beautiful articulation. If you wanted, if you don't have it, the rest of the pileup is going to just massacre you. So you need that articulation. The F and the S, they're there. Without it, the S is gone. So that's why when you listen to some of us in the DX mode, it's horrible sounding. I mean, horrible. And right after the equalizer, I thought, you know what? I'm going to build an element that'll do that. And I did. We built, I don't know how many thousand, close to 100,000, still building it. The HC element, the HC4, it rolled off at 500 hertz and had a, you ready for this, 10 dB spike. 10 at 2.5. I mean, it just ripped through your speaker like crazy. And it became a lot of the DX and DX expeditions, especially, they said that's their secret tool. It wasn't an amplifier, it wasn't antennas, it was that element because whatever the amplifier and the antenna could do, if you didn't have the audio right, didn't do any good. This put everything right here. And we're still building this today. It's called an HC7, and it's in our Pro 7. You know, most amazing headset out there. I know there are guys that tried to copy it, but they need to play with their race cars and leave this alone. They're not audio guys. Because this thing, I borrowed a lot of things from Paul Klipsch. He taught me how to take a speaker out into free air and do a cone resonance. Find out where the cone in the speaker resonates. Then you build the enclosure to enhance that frequency so that there's no phase distortion. The speaker never moves. You never want to see a speaker cone moving. If you do, there's something wrong with the cabinet. And so all that energy is done to produce the movement of air, not anything else. And you can't see that hardly. So I found the right speaker. It took me about a year and a half before the right thing came along. The manufacturers would work with it because they thought I was crazy when I told them what I wanted. And it's in this great enclosure that we tuned to the speaker, and then really nice soft pads. And they're not gel pads per se, but they really close things off. I answered a lot of you to say, hey, we need a balance control because I'm hard of hearing in one side. Okay, so we have a balance control. Yeah, it'll go left or right, where you want to do there. But the other side, you don't need a Y cord for your logger or somebody listening. You plug it in here and they can hear what you're hearing. But then the biggie. We're the first company, and we've been doing it for, oh, darn near, I don't know, 12, 13 more years, that have phase reversal. And you're going, why do you need phase reversal? That's because if you hear a signal in a pileup and this little weakie's way back here, you reverse that phase and you can move him up here. You can move signals around in your head by phasing speaker to speaker. If they're out of phase, boom, it gives you a different platform. And so these are all things that a lot of you wanted. And it's got detachable cable. It has a detachable microphone element because if you have an ICOM, you have to use the special ICOM element. We also have an element for broadcast, and we have one for other sources. But anyway, all of our headsets have a steel band in them. Every once in a while, I'll see a post on eHam or something. A darn Heil headphone hits my ears. Well, you didn't read the instructions because all you got to do, this is set up for my pin head, but if you have a wider head, don't worry, you're not going to break it. There you go. So much of what I do is listening to you guys and gals because you're the ones that have a situation and I want to answer it. And so we have. And the equalization thing has really been taken care of. With the ICOM, it takes a very special microphone. You cannot just jam a dynamic microphone in it. And none of these companies really build their own microphone. I know that comes as a shock. A lot of people, well, you're crazy, Heil. I got it and it's in the box. Yeah, right. But where did it come from? What kind of engineer designed it? It wasn't them. Well, it's got their name on it. Yeah, right. So Dr. Inouye asked me to do something right. And we did. It only works on ICOM. That's why it's modeled called the ICM. It almost spells ICOM. And it's just amazing. The output is perfect, and you don't want to overdrive that preamp. Just the only way you adjust microphone gain is by watching the ALC meter. It's not about settings in a manual. Well, I see there, they said to set it at 30. Or Bill tells me in the morning to set it at 35. Ridiculous. You're the engineer. You have the license. You need to operate your radio. How do you set mic gain? You have a meter to tell you that. When I did the FT9000, I really loved that project. That's the best transceiver that I've seen to date. Yeah, I said that because it's true. First of all, it has 3-pin XLR because it's a balanced input, just like all of the broadcast transmitters. Balanced input. And so when you do that, you can get rid of a lot of RFI problems because with an unbalanced, that shield is floating. Can you believe that? These companies, all of them, ICOM, Kenwood, Elecrat, all of them, they don't ground their shield. You got to be kidding me. When I started building in 1956, when I got my license, the first thing I was told was ground that shield. What in the world is wrong with these guys? I don't get it. So you got to be careful because if you have any stray RF, guess where it's going to end up? On that shield because it's not an into your radio. It's disturbing to me. Well, the FT9000, I took off the ALC meter. You don't need that. It's labeled microphone setting. Microphone gain. That is how you set mic gain, is watch the ALC meter. And just as you're seeing this meter over my shoulder, it just bounces. In fact, that's a little bit hotter than I'd like it to be. It only hits the red mark on real serious transition. You want to make sure that you keep that under the red mark. And that's how you adjust mic gain. You don't call Bill and I don't know what you do, but I know what you have to do. Watch the ALC meter. It's the only reason it's there. Why is it there? Somebody want to answer that? Nobody has. So what can I tell you? But a year or so later, Dr. Hasagawa came to me, came into my booth at Dayton. I wanted to do it better. I said, what are we talking about here? We're talking about that EQ. Oh, okay. Well, let's step out of the booth and talk about this. And that started our wonderful relationship with Yesu. Here's the deal. The only better way to do that, parametric. Yeah, that'd be good. No, now wait a minute. There'd be a problem. What would be the problem? I said, well, with two-band EQ, I set the frequency, and all the user has to do is increase or decrease. He doesn't know anything about what frequencies they are. It works. With a parametric, you are the engineer, and you have to set each one of the, ready for this, nine buttons. And that's the problem. I hear so many people on the air, especially in the beginning days with Yaesu, they just leave it in the default mode because they had no education, as Mr. Hasagawa was going to do. Their manuals are terrible. I look at those and go, what is it? Here's the deal. Look at this one panel of a Yaesu. I fuzzed out all that stuff on the left. You don't need to know what they are. They're just assignment numbers 201, 202, 203, 204, so on. Another Yesu, they all have different numbers. It'd be a 301, 401, that kind of thing. We don't care. Here's what we care about: frequency level width, frequency level width, and frequency level width. Width is the bandwidth of that audio filter. I just use them at 2 octaves and leave it. You don't need to get carried away. I set the first one at 200 and I notch it 3 or 4 dB. I set the second one at 900. Now, why did I do that? There's something that goes on between about 7, 8, 900. It's a boxy sound. If you do this to your ears, when you're talking, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's a hollow, weird sound. And that just seems to be there in all rooms and everything else. Let's notch it out a little. So set it at 7, 8, 900, notch it 3 dB, 2 octaves. But where are you going to put the top filter? Of course, 2.5K plus 8 dB. And that's how you do it. You're able to move things around. Unlike any other equalizer, the others are all fixed. It's all on my website. It's all there. Go to my website and it's all there. Frequency level width. There's a lot of other things on that website too, but that is there, and it'll give you all of the things you need to know. And if you don't have an equalizer in your radio, well, you need to look at an outboard one. Oh, the other thing I need to cover also is Kenwood, Elecraft, all the other radios. They're pretty much like this. Some of them have a graphic, but those that don't, this is what you want to do. You're going to roll off things on the low end hard, 50 to 100, and you're going to come up and be pretty level. But then we start moving upwards. We feather it out at 1600 up to 2400 and back down. And that's how you set a graphic equalizer or the equalizer on a Kenwood or so on. And you just, every once in a while I hear these guys, oh, I just do a smiley face. I want to come through the speaker and choke you. What? A smiley face. That means nothing. You don't know what you're destroying when you do, oh, I just do it because it's pretty or this way. No, you do it because you need it. The frequencies have to be there. And it's very simple when you look at some of the things. Our website has a lot of things set up for you. And all you have to do is go to heilsound.com and down in the support pages of the ham radio pages, in that support page, you'll find all of these different things set up for the radios. There's quite a few there. And you just look up the support page and they'll all be there. All things Yaesu, all things Elecraft, all things ICOM. I think there's around 55 pages in there right now. And so the other thing is a lot of guys they don't know how to use their RF gain. They just use it wide open. Well, you have to have it wide open. You wouldn't hear anything. Wrong. Boy, is it wrong. Take a listen to this. I think this will work. I'm not, I got to check this out. It might not. Oh,
Mostly just am involved in right tune on the 2-meter net and
the noise kind of went away. And then we do this slow AGC. Now look when he brings it back up. It's going to get real noisy.
I don't enjoy the computer part of the getting into the running the computers at all like we used to. So I don't really have much to say.
Here's another example of that. Lowering the RF gain does not mean you are not going to hear that signal.
And somebody like Bob or anybody
And you're going to
else
set the AGC to slow.
I wonder about this
It sounds like it's on FM.
stuff that we used to do. And
Listen to that. That's a
apply it
single
to
sideband
new,
signal. Now listen when we turn the RF gain back up and do fast AGC.
Abilities that come along with this hobby. The technician class was truly a technician class test.
No matter what it is, you're not going to lose the signal. Even signals that are way down in the noise, because you're going to take the noise floor with you also. I never listen to a radio unless that noise gain, the RF gain is reduced. And it's really sad because I don't see much talked about with some of this kind of stuff. It's really something. But there again, you just have to follow some of the science of this hobby. The balanced microphone. Why do we want balanced microphones? Every microphone produced by the big 3 or 4, and they're not produced, they're ordered. They're produced by OEM companies, not them. I know it's got their name and it came in a box, so it's got to be good. No, it doesn't. They're all unbalanced. Watch this. Look at that. You take a microphone cartridge, it's balanced. You have the plus, which is a red connection, and you have the minus, which is a black, into a differential microphone preamp. Just about every microphone preamp today in our radios is differential. But here's what happens. That amplifier is only looking for the plus and the minus signal. Then it joins it together and you have a very clean signal. Go back again. What's that little blue thing? That's noise coming into your microphone, picking it up on the cable. But it's not a plus or a minus, so it's not over there on the clean side. How hard is this? So simple for the manufacturers to understand. Well, all of our microphone cables and just about every one of our microphones are balanced line. especially our PR series. It's wonderful because they're clean. And one of the most popular today is the PR 781. It's become the darling of the podcast market, and it's just great on the transceivers today. It's balanced line, the cable that comes with it for the Kenwood and Yaesu and ICOM is balanced line, and that's so important. And I want to emphasize the fact that this balanced line is something that again is not talked about, but you want to look at that. And I don't know why the manufacturers are not taking advantage of this. I do know it would cost them more money, so they couldn't buy it for $3 or $4 and sell it for 40 or 50 or 100. That is true, by the way. I've been on the other side inside these plants. I know what happens. And it irritates me because it's no difference to do it right. And we do all of our microphones right. But I want to talk about a few antenna things. I really love antennas. We could be here for hours. The best antenna out there, there's nothing, zero, like a resonant dipole. In-FET, what I don't know what all that garbage is. No, it's got to be a resonant, plus or minus one to each side, fed with 50 ohm coax. I would put a balun there, not a balum. It's a balun. Where'd that word come from? I hear guys talking about their balums, and I just want to come through the speaker. It's balanced, balanced to unbalanced. Balun. Balun. UN, not UM. Balanced to unbalanced. And it's just a transformer. It's a coil of wire and a coil of wire that moves the energy from the in to the out, transfers it across that magnetic field in there. But they're not touching each other. So none of the RF is fed back down that shield. And that is so simple, very simple. You need to think about those things. There's a lot of different things you can do to hang it, so on. I'm sure a lot of you know. I never use pulleys. I use carabiners. I don't use pulleys. That carabiner is really cool. It's a stainless steel 6-inch with a lock on it, and all of these kind of things. But I wanted to get to this before we close here. We're getting close to time out. A friend of mine in Kansas City lived in an area where he couldn't have antennas, so he wanted to do an attic antenna, all bands, and he did. This was the coolest thing that I've seen in a long time. First is a balun, so then it goes all the way down the side. You see the back side of that has a piece of aluminum, so it shorts all of those drivens together that side and the drivens on the other side. That's what it looks like. It's pretty cool. And then all of the different wires, and every one of them is cut to resonance. 80, 40, 30, even 6 and 2 meters, although they don't have very good response, but he didn't care. The response of all the others under 10 meters is really great. Look at it. But he cut them to resonance. The 6-meter one, he didn't care. He just wanted it at 51.7, which was his computer, or his repeaters that he listened to up there. But this is one great idea, and it works. He's worked over 100 countries with 100 watts. That's how he mounted the board and run all these off. What a unique idea, and it sure works good. So those are some of the things that you can do. And you don't have to worry about that you need a lot of space. A good resonant antenna, nothing like it. But I do have to tell you about this one. I came across this years ago. Art Collins published a piece of information about antennas, and they they state most transmitting antennas of resonant dimensions elevated at a quarter wave above the ground are as close to 100% efficiency as possible. Think about that. I read that and I thought, yeah, I wonder if that works. Well, I had a group on 40 meters, so we'd have about 5 or 6 of us around the United States every night, and said, hey, we're going to try this. So I put up about 20 feet, I put up a reference antenna. So every night I'd come on at the reference so they could check to see if the atmosphere was down or up or same every night. Okay. And I had each night I'd come on with a different antenna. Well, the different level of antenna. One night I came down 15 feet. Yeah, it worked. Came to 20 feet. Yeah. Came to 30. It went okay. Went to 40. It was okay. But I went back to exactly 33 foot. Whoa. Huh. Art was right. So that, okay, let's do half. So I took it up to 50 foot. And do you know it wasn't much better than 33 foot? Why? We went on the next night. I put it at 66 foot, like it lights up. We're dealing in quarter, halves, and so on. Resonant. And here's why that all happens. It's very simple. Your antenna has a direct ray. We all know about that. But there's another one, kind of a secret one, down on the ground. If you can get that other ray, which is reflected, if you could get that to combine with wow, look at that. And that's all done by the height, the distance of B and C. All of these things have things that make a lot of sense, but I never read any of this. And then I proved it, and it's like, wow, how come I don't read this stuff? But, there's just so much more. We'll come back another time and get into other things too. And we do a whole thing on a pine board. I love the pine board project we did. The pine board project. Wow, that was something. I was on the air with it yesterday. I wonder if any of you got into that yesterday. Yesterday was the ARRL. Actually, it was all weekend. Classic AM exchange. I work people all over the country on AM. I even had my pine board on with 5 watts. We had so much fun. And it is great building all this stuff. That's a power supply, the microphone, EQ, microphone preamp, and equalization, I might add, and a pair of had a 6AG7 and a 6V6 for the modulator, and it was band switching from 40 to 75 meters by us making the clip go one into the other. Amazing stuff. That's where I learned a lot, and that's why I try to bring it to light, because there's so much to be learned and I'm not seeing it. And there's a big push here in America for vintage gear. I love my old vintage gear. ICO 720, 730, beautiful setup. That 730 is a hi-fi amplifier that ICO built years ago. They were big in the hi-fi movement. I know. I had one in 1950. Before I ever thought about using it for ham radio, but they took them in the 730. They took the output transformer out and put in a matching transformer of for the 6146. It works great. So these are just fun things that through my life I've done. And talking about that stray RF, I forgot to show you this. You see, your unbalanced microphones, you have a, you're not balanced, you're not grounding a shield. And a lot of times, sometimes it's working, sometimes it doesn't. If you got a lot of stray RF running around, solder a piece of wire onto pin 7. Here, that's 7 would be the ground shield. Don't take it off. You're going to add that red. It doesn't have to be red, by the way. And then you take the other end, and when you put that all back together, you couple that to the screw holding the cable clamp. You have grounded that shield to the chassis when you tighten that down. It all works really good, let me tell you. We have our own microphone cable. I cannot tell you. I know you expect me to tell you it's the best. Well, it's the best because I designed it that way. Microphone shield it's a joke. The shields are terrible. You spread them apart and you end up with nothing. This is 100% silver shield, and boy, it's beautiful to solder and to make a shield for your 2 leads. We have a plus and a minus lead. This is not 26 gauge like most of your microphone leads that came in the box. This is 18 gauge stuff, and it really plays. I do this because the broadcast industry buys thousands of feet of this because it's really good stuff. But here's the big kicker. What's that blue and red kicking out there? They're on the outside of the shield. You see, when you have push to talk, that's DC. And these other idiots, they put, yeah, they are. They're not very good engineers, or they'd figure it out. I'm just a lonely ham. I'm not an engineer, but enough to figure this out. At least my mentors showed it to me. When you put that DC inside a shield with real sensitive AC, it couples it back into the power supply. You get all kinds of crap. Why not do it right? And I've solved more RFI problems just by changing the mic cable. Amazing, isn't it? All of this and so much more is in my handbook. If you don't have it, you can find it. Martin Lynch, Nevada, Waters the Standard, they all have it, or it's in our web store also. And you can go to our website in the pro side. There's 2 websites when you bring it up. You want to go to the pro side. In the support, you'll find this is there for you to download. It all starts at the microphone. It's a lot of stuff in there. And a lot of you might know that Heil Sound, we became the only manufacturer in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That console you see me in front of, I built at the discretion and the asking invitation of Mr. Peter Townsend. We did that for Quadrophenia. It was the first and only quad mixer that we went on tour with for a couple of years, and it's still out there running around. On the back side of that is a mixer I built for ZZ Top, and the talk box is there. I invented the talk box. And just wonderful things have happened through amateur radio to my life. I was given an honorary PhD recently from Missouri University. But it's all because of ham radio. That's why I'm here. I want to pass some of this on to you because this is an incredible hobby. Incredible hobby. I'm very, very blessed to become a member of well over 50 years in the QCWA. I hope that you belong to some of these organizations. It's really cool. Anybody have any questions? I bet you do.
Anyone with a question? Just shout out. I think you feel so much into your talks and you answer the questions as you go along, to be quite honest with you. It's quite amazing.
Yeah, Rich has got a question, John.
Oh,
Rich.
go ahead, Rich.
So my question is, I'm learning CW, and so I have to set my CW frequency somewhere, it only seems to be 500 to 700 hertz, not 2500. What's the right thing to do there?
The right thing is what you need. CW is an interesting thing. No, you wouldn't be 2500. That's for voice. CW is up to your own ear system. And you're right. Most of it between 400 700, but that's not, oh, Heil said that. No, that's what you need to hear. And you just need to play with it. But you're right. You're in the same. You're right. You're in the right ballpark. Somewhere between 500 7. Any lower it gets too much bass ended to it. Yeah,
Thank
you're
you.
right.
And thank you for the talk.
Sure. Thank you. Notch out all that noise. Okie dokie.
Anyone else? Anyone got a question?
I don't think so. I think the talk was so amazing.
Yeah.
Really amazing. Thank you so much, Bob. That's really great. Once again, very, very interesting. Yeah. Always learn a lot.
I appreciate having me there, and we'll do it again. Maybe get really further into some of the antenna stuff or whatever you want. Send me some subjects, and we'll try to cover it for you. Because one of the things that I told you about, we have this thing that's been with me since the Paul Clips meeting. It's 800 pages. we can find something better to talk about. I still use it, man, but there's so much to talk about, and I don't understand these manufacturers. They manufacture these radios and expect us to all be engineers, and we're not. So, well, thanks so much for having me. Let's come
Thanks,
back
Bob.
again.
Yeah, cheers, Bob. Thanks.
Hey, Bob, we may not see you at Hamvention, but you and Sarah take it easy out there, okay?
Okay. Well, you might have saw it was released today. Sarah has retired. And actually, she retired several months back. And people read it wrong. I have a new title, but I'm far from being retired because I'm still doing things just as I always have. But a lot of people sent me notes saying, "Oh, you're retired." No, they gave me a new title. I'm an American. What is an emeritus? I'm just a hick from Southern Illinois.
Will you be at the at the Hamfest? Will you be coming?
No, we're not going to do any live things today until this stupid virus thing calms down a little.
Okay, I just wanted to check with you. I wish you and Miss Sarah a good health, okay?
Okay, I thank you very much. Okay, everyone. Well,
Bob, I've got one more thing.
Yeah.
Is in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to email you because there's a few of us that are interested in your parametric EQ system. I know that I'm interested, MLO's interested, GCQ is interested, and possibly some others that are part of Ham Radio Network. If I email you, say tomorrow, and try and arrange a date to just have a discussion on the parametric EQ, is that okay with you?
I certainly, anytime. That's what I do.
Perfect. Cool.
But here's the question. Do you have another 3 minutes?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Let me...
there you go.
Let me do a little...
Perfect. Thanks.
I want to do a couple of things here. First of all, the speakers in this thing, I get real irritated with a lot of people that build things and tell you how great they are. This is Paul Clips written all over it. First of all, I had to find that speaker. Look how big that magnet is. Had to take it out into free air and find out what the cone resonance was. And we did that for many, many of our speakers when we were on the road all the time, but they were monster speakers. And then you tune that cavity to that, so there's no phase distortion in the speaker. Then it has the amplifier is amazing. It's balanced line in. It's really super. And it's not 4, 5, 15 watts. It happens to be 25 watts. And you're going to say, why you need that? Well, you don't. However, you do So the fact that we don't have any distortion, that's why you have a lot of amplifiers that have a lot of power, but you're not going to use them. But you'll have absolutely no distortion, and that's what I was after. So what I have here is I have some audio that I took off the internet, and we're going to go in live, and you'll be able to hear it. And there's nothing like it, and you'll discover that in a second. First of all, we have the input level. We have three filters. We have just a regular shelving set at 6K plus or minus. We have the low one at 160 hertz plus or minus. What we're going to do is I'm going to minus those low ends a little on top end. But then comes the biggie. This is the big one. What we have here is a parametric equalizer. I'm going to set the gain, and we're going to leave that. And this will rotate from 400 to 4,000. And when I play this recording, I forgot to turn it up over here. When I play this recording, you will notice very easily. Come on here. Cut it up. Here we go.
20 years in the Navy or whatever the military is and retire. People say, well, you got it made. No, you don't.
Here's a D104. It's all highs. Listen to what we can do to make him sound realistic.
So I speeded up the tape, and sure enough, I can copy it.
I'll take it back.
I had a lot of fun the other night.
Very tinny.
I thought, well, I wonder if I can copy that. I had about 30 words a minute, and so I speeded up the tape, and
makes it
sure
a realistic
enough, I can copy it.
audio. Here comes the biggie. That's the way you hear him. Listen.
Echo India 8 Bravo Lima Bravo PI8LB.
Here it is flat, the way you hear him.
Sierra Germany. Hope I have it right. Very good day to you from Ireland. Name is Lima.
There it is flat.
Alpha Mike, over.
The way you hear him.
Echo India 8 Bravo Lima Bravo PI8LB calling in by.
No argument. One of the other things that's really, really worth the whole deal. I have 2 headphone amplifiers. You can have a logger with his own. This is not a Y cord like some of the cheapies do. No. These are separate line amplifiers. This is for the logger. This is for the operator. But as we discover, when it got on the market, we're selling many of them for people that have a hearing unbalance. So you can put your left speaker, your right speaker of your headphone, and you can equalize whatever you need as far as level. You also have the equalizer. Many of these are being sold for televisions, me included, because televisions have terrible audio. And so I'm really, really excited about the parametric receive audio system, and it being able to hear it and really experience what it does. I think that's the best thing. Did that help you at all?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely, Bob. Thank you very much. Yeah, that's quite something. The way that you can pull the audio out of the muck and the noise is something else.
It's all about 2.5K.
Can I ask you a question then, Bob? So using your parametric equalizer and your powered amplified speaker, do they go together well?
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at the top shelf behind you, to the right of the meter, you've got one of your Heil speakers, yeah, amplified speakers.
Oh yeah.
So if I was to use that in conjunction with the parametric equalizer, would that work fine?
Oh yeah, that's why I have it. If you want to use a speaker, you can. But so many of them are being used for headphones. But I have mine so that I can connect it into the output of the parametric. You can also hook a couple of radios to it at the same time.
Because not every time do I want to put headphones on. I do use headphones quite a bit. Yours, by the way. But I don't want to use it all the time. So to be able to use a speaker with the parametric equalizer is great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, everybody. This has been enjoyable for me. I hope for you. And we'll come back and do something again. I appreciate the invite. Let's do it again, John.
Yeah, cheers, Bob. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
Okay. All right, everybody.